Hi, this is Matt from Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns, and you're listening to another fantastic show on the Self-Defense Radio Network. Visit selfdefenseradio.net to check out all the other great shows.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, a man for whom getting stuck in traffic was the only thing worse than sticking around for day one of nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. All right, before we get started, I want to tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Recently, at a sanctioned IDPA match, I went to the line, I went to load and make ready, and the little dingus thing flew out of my trigger. Just completely flew out of the gun. So I had to scramble and shoot the stage with a backup gun. So now I'm in the market for a new trigger, and guess what I found? GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing that you know about Glock pistols is their reliability. They're out of the box, to the range, to the match, absolutely reliable. And it's what makes them popular with competitors like myself, law enforcement, military, and responsible citizens. But the one drawback is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the people at Glock Triggers, they asked themselves, how can we make this better? But how can we do it while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they refine the interaction of the metal parts in the trigger kit to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced overtravel without sacrificing safety or reliability. That's important. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn. Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, or the Hackathorn trigger system and use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off your entire order. GlockTriggers.com, the highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. Our special guest today is Karl Kulp from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Karl, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living there in Brooklyn Park.
Well, I'm an old guy. I'm 74 years old. I've been a shooter all my life. I started out as a young man or a young boy and shot mostly rifle and shotgun. And when I went to college, I shot on the rifle team and I shot on the pistol team and got my first taste of competitive shooting there. After college, I continued shooting mostly shotgun, and then in about 2007, I had always shot handguns pretty much strictly plinking or target shooting, but I began to get interested in obtaining my permit to carry. Minnesota has a very good permit to carry environment, and it's fair and relatively safe and quite popular, and I decided that I would study up and go take the test and stuff and do the permit to carry. And during that time, and after I got my permit, I figured that I really ought to do something to aid in proficiency beyond my target shooting. And so I kind of abandoned the shotgun shooting. It was getting too expensive anyhow, and I decided to shoot an IDPA. So I attended some local matches and met some people and really liked the people, and that's actually been one of the things that's kept me interested in IDPA all along, is it's a great bunch of folks.
Right.
It seems to me like all shooters are good people. As a rule, I really enjoy the community, and the social part of it is real nice. But In 2008, I joined IDPA and started shooting in all the local matches. Didn't travel too much. Went to Wisconsin, I think, for one state shoot. And we have 2 active clubs in the Twin Cities area. And so I shot the club events, the Wednesday night or the Thursday night events, and then the monthly matches and stuff. And I'm a member of both clubs. And then after Jodee, and I'm sure you'll get the story from Jodee, but after Jodee started to shoot with me, she and I decided that traveling to some of the matches out of the state would be fun and interesting and give us a chance to get out of Minnesota. So we started doing Florida and met folks down in Florida and really liked them. And we like Florida anyhow. It's a nice place to go and visit, and the community and shooting environment down there is pretty nice. So we did the Florida State shoot. You know what? I think that's actually untrue. I think we did the Wisconsin State shoot prior to doing the Florida one. So more local, but that was in 2014 or 13, 2014, I think. And then we did the Florida State, and we met the guys and liked them all, and they invited us to come back and do what they call the Space Coast Challenge. And another real good shoot. So one of those is normally early in the year, February, March, and the other one is September, October. So we did that actually right straight through last year. Every year we were down to the Florida State shoot. Now, we branched out from there. We did nationals in Texas last year at Crescent, or 2 years ago. And we've been sticking with going to those shoots and going back to visit our friends. And we've got now friends all over the country that we've met primarily in Florida. But we did Wisconsin, Michigan state shoots also. And so we're making it our senior adventure to jump in the motorhome and drive to these out-of-state shoots. And I hope we continue to do it.
Very cool. So did you grow up with guns? Did you take up the shotgun early in life? Or were you taught to shoot as a kid, or?
Well, my father was an avid shooter, and he shot mostly shotgun, but he also was a rifleman and a varmint shooter. And so I started out my shooting career. I still have my very first target. My father gave me a 22, a Remington 541 with a little Weaver scope on it for my 8th birthday. And I have the target that I shot, and it's labeled in my father's hand that says Karl's first group. It was bad, but it was my first one.
That's awesome.
So that was 8.5 years old, and my father was a very avid shooter, but also very safety conscious, and he wanted me to be safe and knowledgeable, and he taught me. And I always went down to Maryland or Delaware or up in New York, wherever those guys were going woodchuck hunting. I went with them and did a little bit of that. Not with my own. I didn't have a rifle for it. So I did a little bit of shooting of the men's rifles, 220 Swift or a 22 Hornet, whatever. And as I got big enough to be able to do it, I began operating the skeet and trap houses at the gun club my father used to go to. So they were manual in those days, so that they hired a kid for $4 a day, and he used to sit there and cock the trap and put birds on it all day long for $4. But I'll tell you, I had $18 at one time, and I was feeling high. That was big money, but I would have probably been about 10 years old, so that would have been like 1954. So it was more money then than it is now, I guess. And I did that as my only job, really, for quite a few years, probably into high school.
So where did the interest in competitive shooting come from? Was it being around trap all the time? Where did that interest get started?
Well, that probably mostly came in college. I was in Naval ROTC, and as soon as the gunny just found out that I was a shooter, he was all over that. He was going to have this kid and get him down on the range. And in those days, we could shoot in the armory on the campus. And so I shot rifle it was, I think, only rifle for a first couple of months. And then Gunny was trying to get enough people to staff up the pistol team. And I had done some pistol shooting, but really just plinking and maybe a few targets with my father's handguns. And he got me to begin shooting the pistol team too. And I think he needed to fill out the team more than anything, because there weren't too many guys that were any good, or he wouldn't have picked me. Funny story about that. That's where I learned about getting the monkey on your back. And I know I've heard people say that was all fine until I shot in the match, and then I couldn't hit the thing because you get scrambled because you're just shaky or not focusing or whatever. And that happened to me big time in my first pistol match for the University of Minnesota. So I started. So that was my first real competition, and I did quite a bit of rifle competition in the time I was in college.
So, but it was a long time after that before you were introduced to, before you got serious about competitive handgun shooting. And you said it was 2008 when you joined IDPA.
Yeah.
How did you find out about it, and what interested you about it? And tell us about that first experience, that first match that you went to.
Okay, well, I'll give you a little tidbit on that one. But I did competitive shotgun shooting, and I was very avid from college days up until probably right around 2008 or so. And as shotgun play target shooting got more and more expensive, I had to cut back because the price of targets kind of went out of sight, on the price of ammunition when you're going to shoot 10,000 rounds a year. And
right.
I knew I have always been a hand loader also, so I knew that hand loading for handguns is, comparatively speaking, quite inexpensive. And I found IDPA on YouTube, I think. I can't remember. Okay. I don't think I'm actually, before I first went, I don't think I knew anybody that was shooting, but I found out there was a local club and called up the match director. And actually, I knew it was around because I was a member of, it's called Minnetonka Game and Fish Club, and I was a member of that club, and I knew that they did IDPA. And my brother shot USPSA too, so I was aware of that. And they have a USPSA group at Minnetonka also. So, but I didn't know anybody. Didn't know a single guy or person shooting those sports at Minnetonka. But I decided to go ahead and give it a go. And the funny thing I wanted to tell you is that the same bug that I briefly mentioned about getting all shaky and crazy happened to me at my first monthly shoot. The Thursday evening shoots or whatever they were, I don't know. Evening shoots were just a few people on relatively low pressure. I was okay. I obviously didn't know much, and was still very much a newbie, but the very first match, I was nervous as could be. My knees were shaking, my hands were shaking, my head was a mess, and we got into a stage that had weak hand, and the guy that had been coaching me a little bit actually turned around laughing because my hands were so unsteady and so shaky on that first match that he just couldn't stand it. and he turned around and laughed. And actually, that broke the spell for me. I was a little bit better after that because I realized that really this is just for fun. You don't need to be so crazy nervous. I mean, you always want to do well. It's easy to get nervous when you want to do well and you know you're not.
Oh, yeah. Well, how did that compare to you mentioned going to Wisconsin for your first sanction match. What was that experience like for a first-time shooter? If you were nervous at your first local match, how did it compare to that big sanction match?
You know, it wasn't a big deal then, but I had that would have been 2008 through 2014. So I had a few years of club matches, and our club matches can be big. They can be over 50 people on occasion. So there's pretty good attendance. And by that time, I and finally figured out that I shouldn't be all that nervous, and I really wasn't. And actually, we were SOing the match. So I didn't actually shoot with the normal competitors. In those matches, they almost always have the SO shoot before on the same day or the previous day or something like that. And that environment is interesting because it's awfully hard to be focused on shooting when you've spent days and many hours and sleepless nights and whatever getting the match ready. And then the SO day is usually a big rush because there's all the last minute changes to stages and modifications and reshoots and on and on and on. It's can be a disaster and has been many times. So by that time I was ready for it. I've had worse shoots at Wisconsin than that first one.
What's your current favorite division, and what gun are you competing with most often?
Well, that's a good question. I started out strictly SSP. I actually started out with a 40 because I got a good buy on a Glock 40. Soon figured out that wasn't a real good idea, and migrated over to an M&P Pro, and shot SSP for quite a while. 9mm M&P Pro. I've been always interested in revolvers, and so for the last five years or so, maybe even a little more, I've focused on revolver, and that's what I shoot almost all the time is revolver. And I do that because it's hard, and because not many people do it, and people do it and turn away from it. It's frustrating, and you have to reload all the time, and there's all sorts of things that go wrong, and the stages aren't very friendly for revolvers, and all that kind of stuff. So I switched to the revolver just because I wanted to see if I could meet the challenge. And the other thing, another laugh for you, when I first tried to shoot the revolver double action and do it fast, I couldn't have hit the inside of the barn from the inside. It was really a disaster because almost all my pistol shooting had either been with real good trigger semi-automatics or revolvers, but shooting them single action. And trying to hit anything double action really, really, really threw me for a loop. I was awful. I'm not very good now, but I was really awful.
So, I'm thinking of making that same mistake and switching. I've been shooting semi-autos for years, and for some reason I'm thinking about picking up the wheel gun. And the one common denominator from all the people that I've talked to who shoot revolver is they talk about how difficult that transition is from shooting a semi-auto to shooting that double action trigger on a revolver.
Right. Well, they're right. It's very, very difficult for me to keep the front sight on target while I'm pulling the trigger. And if I jerk the trigger, well, you don't hit anything. If you don't jerk the trigger, if you pull the sight off the target, it's still going to miss. So it's a struggle. And but one thing about it, Lloyd, is I'm old enough and slow enough, and my eyes aren't all that good. I can't beat the good shooters, and I don't care honestly if I beat them or not. I'm not going out to compete in the sense that I want to win a match. I want to do my best, and that's exciting for me to overcome my own frailties there and try to do as well as I can. And I have improved a lot. I'm still not great by any stretch of the imagination, but I have improved very much over what I was when I first started. So, and it's an adventure.
Right, and I think the maturity that you have going into that experience is a little different than someone my age or younger might be, where you've got years of trying to shoot really, really fast with those really, like you said, the really good light triggers, and then all of a sudden everything slows to a, almost to a halt because you're shooting the wheel gun. I've seen so many pictures of friends. A good friend of mine from Mississippi just this week and on Facebook posting a picture where he's unloading his revolver. It just looks like he wants to throw it in the trash.
Yeah. Well, sure. And because it's difficult and because you have high expectations for yourself, maybe unwarranted, that happens. That's probably why people don't stick to it, because it's hard to be good, and you're never going to be as good as you would be with a semi-automatic. I actually know a couple of guys that are nearly as good with revolver as they are with their semi-automatic, and that's mighty impressive. They've accomplished a lot by doing that. But if you have an idea that you can shoot tremendous scores really fast with the revolver just because you can do it with the semi-automatic, you're in for a rude awakening, I'll tell you.
Exactly. Now you talked about how you and Jodee travel around the country a lot now and go to matches beyond your local area. What are some of the best matches that you've been to, the ones that you really enjoyed visiting, and have you got any fun or interesting stories from any of those road trips that you could share?
Sure. I think we've had the most fun in Florida. The folks down there are very nice. They're all avid shooters. We've met people, half of them are snowbirds, so they're from Michigan or Wisconsin and that kind of stuff. So we're not totally foreigners when we get down there because they're used to seeing the snowbirds. But the people there shoot a lot, and they shoot 12 months of the year, and for most of them, that's their big hobby. If they're not golfers, they're shooters. So it's well thought of, and the ranges are nice, and the laws are reasonably friendly. You don't need to worry about trouble you might find in some states. So
Right.
we've had a wonderful time there. And once again, the wonderful time is we're doing something we like to do. We've met people that are really fun to be around. We try to really contribute when we go to a match. We try. It's, as you well know, it's a sport that needs everybody to contribute to make it go. It's a volunteer sport, and so the volunteers have to sacrifice a little bit of their money and a little bit of their maybe competitive spirit if they want to SO the match and help run it and stuff. And Jodee and I both feel that we can contribute more by doing that than we can anything else in the shooting. So
So you guys are traveling and actually working matches instead of just traveling and shooting.
We have never traveled and just shot. We've SO'd every match we traveled to. We've SO'd, yeah, every one. And because we both enjoy being safety officers, because it's a contribution we can make. I've been a safety officer since 2011, I believe, or 10. I did it early on because we were very short in our club with safety officers, and so I said, well, fine, I'll figure out how to do that. And that's it's an undertaking you have to be serious about, because you really are making a step to influence how safe the match is, and you have to change your focus to keeping it safe as opposed to just competing. So, but it's an interesting focus, and I've been very safety conscious my whole life about firearms. They can be bad if handled improperly, and if it's not the firearm, it's the handling, it's the person behind it that causes the trouble. And
right. Give us a shout out for your local club, for your home club.
Sure. As I said, we have two. One is Minnetonka Game and Fish, and that's an interesting club. It's a beautiful site with lots of shooting opportunity, and their policy is that any matches that are held as a match, whether it's a weekday match or a weekend match or a monthly match or anything else, anybody that wants to come on the property and shoot with us, as long as they essentially follow the safety rules, is welcome. So that's kind of a nice thing. It's wide open for matches. And the other club is our Twin City, but that's a very nice club also. They don't have their own site, so Twin City Club shoots primarily at another facility. In the summertime, it's at Beaverbrook Sportsman's Club, which is a nice facility, and they just, because a lot of the TCAS people are members of Beaverbrook Club and on the board, they were able to engineer the expansion of the handgun shooting area, and that's where the Minnesota State match will be held. The first ever Minnesota State match will be June 1st this year, and that's going to be in a brand new facility. I think there are a total of 11 bays or 10 bays, something like that, and some of them are big, so that they're big enough for 3-gun or 200 yards, that kind of stuff, and then they're wide so we can put 2 stages in the bay and that kind of stuff. So it's a very nice facility. Once again, anybody that wants to come to the matches can come. They don't have to be members of the Beaverbrook Club. So they're both great clubs, great people, a lot of crossover between the two. The Minnetonka Club and the Beaverbrook Club have at least 50% of the people mixed between the two. And then Twin City shoots all winter, so we actually shoot all winter in Minnesota, but it's inside.
Oh, good. I started saying.
Yeah, it would be disastrous any other way, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've been in Minnesota in the winter, and no. I don't even like shooting out in Texas in the winter. I don't even like shooting.
Last year, Jodee and I took an extended trip in the motorhome and decided to go back and visit the folks in Crescent. We had a nice time there, and they had invited us to come back, and we found out that the schedule was to go straight from Minnesota down to Texas and shoot a match with them, and then head over to Florida, and eventually wound our way down to South Florida for the Florida State. And we got down to Texas, and it was a cold and nasty departure here, and it stayed kind of cold and nasty all the way down. We spent the night before the match at Jellystone Park, just south of Fort Worth a ways. The temperature when we got up was 32 degrees, and it was spitting rain. And that was way too cold for the Texas people to shoot, so they canceled the match. So we drove what? It was 12 or 1,300 miles down there to shoot the match with them, and ended up not able to shoot. They didn't even come to the range. Everybody just canned it. They figured it's just not going to work.
Yeah, we've had a few matches down there where I've myself and friends have got up the morning of the match and said, it's not really worth it. Really. We're just going to stay in. So, last question as we wrap all this up. What is it about IDPA? You got into this, kind of late in life, but you've really gone into it, jumped into it with both feet. You're traveling around the country in an RV, and not just shooting matches, but actually working matches. You've really devoted a lot of time and effort to it. What is it about IDPA that you love so much to put that kind of effort into it? What is it that's special about the sport for you?
Well, all the standard stuff is important to me. I like the challenge. I like the opportunity to get outside and shoot and whatever. But I think the end of the story there is contributing because the people are nice to be around and help, and it makes me want to give back. It's just the good folks with good hearts and good intentions, and it's just a good community. It's a community that I'm proud to be with and help out.
Yep, it really is. It's like a big extended family.
Yep, it sure is. But where I don't know of any other place where so many people they're just down the street people. They're not their rank or position or how much money they have. None of those things make any difference. When you go out to shoot, everybody's sort of on an even plane, and you see people that are head over heels to help out and to share what they can share, and it's nice to do that with them.
Well, Karl, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm looking forward to getting a chance. Since you travel quite a bit, I'm hoping our paths will cross this season.
Well, thank you. I sure hope they do it.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.